Today we're going to be talking about trumpet maintenance. So essentially what we're talking about right now is just, put simply enough, keeping your horn in like its best working condition. So as you were telling me, your third valve and your first valve were a bit sticky.
Like quarter notes or fourth notes, it goes like up a little bit and then it goes middle of the song.
So that happens a lot when you need to, that actually happens not because of a lack of valve oil, but because the valves themselves are dirty. So that's actually where our starting point is going to be. So first and foremost, the most important thing about keeping a trumpet in working condition is learning how to take care of your valves.
Yeah, I washed it in the bathtub, but I haven't seen it do any difference.
Good, I did bring that brush. All right, so first and foremost, you do have your valve oil, right? All right. So you already unscrewed your third valve. Yeah, so let's start there. So this right here is my third valve, right? So when you said you washed it in the bathtub, what exactly did you do?
I put it in, got a rag, like scrubbed it.
Okay.
And swirled it around.
All right.
I don't want to put soap on it because I don't know if it will damage it or like get rusty.
That's actually a really good thing. So the thing about valves is that if you do put them in water, never put the whole thing in.
Yeah, I just dropped it and like.
If you did that just the once and you didn't have soap, then you'll be okay. But for future reference, you don't do that. Because you see this pad right here? Feel it. What's it made of?
Cotton.
Yeah. So when cotton gets really wet for a long period of time, it'll start to get moldy, and you don't want that to happen. But since you only did it the once, you'll actually be okay. It's all dry right now, and there's nothing wrong with it. So just keep that in mind, that this will be bad.
Like
and there's one more thing.
My spring came out. I'm like, whoa! I never noticed this little puppy thing here. It's cotton.
What do you mean your spring came out?
Well, like this top came off right here.
Like this button right here?
No, at the very top.
Oh, okay, okay.
This part.
So. Oh, okay, that makes sense.
And then, like,
as much as possible,
what?
yeah, try and keep that from happening, because if you lose the spring, your valve won't work anymore.
It'll stay at the bottom, right?
Huh?
Well, it won't come up, it will stay down.
Yes, but as like when you did that, you showed me that like the spring can just come out, right?
It's kind of like it went to the side a little bit, and then I was like, what the? So I took it out and looked what happened.
Yeah, that's okay. But the thing is, if you ever lose the spring, that's very bad. Because right here, this is your trumpet valve without a spring. And if you put that in there, try putting it down inside. Do you notice how the valve doesn't come back up? It's going to be permanently stuck down there if you're not careful. So let's take it out and put the spring back, because I don't want to break your instrument.
So that happened too. Then take the bottom off.
Okay. You see, this is why we're talking about this. This is the exact kind of stuff that will happen if horn trumpet maintenance isn't properly upkept. So make sure that the spring always stays in there. And another reason why you don't want to get the entire valve wet is because, do you see how the spring is a lot thinner than the rest of the casing? If that gets rusty, your spring will actually break in half, and the exact same thing will happen. Your valve will go down, but it won't come back up until you get a new spring.
So you want to get the middle part.
Yeah, so if you're going to do that, you hold it so that only this part right here is underwater.
Okay.
And then if it is soapy water, that actually is not a bad thing, just as long as you're not getting any more than just this part here wet. So the first thing that we want to do is you're going to take a paper towel or a piece of paper or anything that's coarse. So can you feel how that like will be abrasive?
Yeah, I never felt this kind of paper before. Cool.
Alright, so what you're going to do with this paper, you'll probably want to fold it because since your valves have oil on them, it's going to absorb all of it. Yeah, exactly like that. So, let's see, third valve. Let's put it back together.
The first valve, because it's also having problems. So the whole thing?
Yeah, because we're going to be doing the same thing to all three valves. So no, you're actually not going to roll it up like that. Sorry.
So how often do you do these? Like once a week?
Yes. The wiping off that we're about to do right now is once a week. You should be oiling your valves whenever they feel slow. But hopefully if you do that, they'll only feel slow once every like 2 or 3-ish days. Like give or take. But not all the time. So what you're actually going to do is just set it down in the paper like that and then just really scrub it, like put a lot of pressure on it. You're not going to hurt the valves, I promise. These valves are super sturdy.
Big twist though.
I do this regularly, which is why my valves aren't that bad. But you can still see like some yellow and other things like that. Yeah, yours has a tiny bit too.
What's these tears? Paper?
Well, that happens too. But this is just an important part of maintenance because if you do this all the time, it's not going to look bad. But that's just because you're keeping it from happening. Because if you don't do it for a very long time, they'll look awful. And then your valves will just stop working. So also, this is the thing I like to do, is you'll take it and you'll actually do the bottom as well.
Ew, it's green.
You see what I mean? This is why we're doing it. Because, see, I take really good care of mine and it's still green. Because, do you remember when you said you put lots of valve oil in it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, all of the valve oil will start sliding down, will the excess. Like, what stays on is what's going to help it move, and the rest of it actually pools at the bottom and dries up, and it becomes that green gunk.
Well, then how does it get in there if I see no holes in here?
Huh? Because it goes down here, and then
Oh.
it'll all pool in one of these, and the bottom
So you
touches
clean
down
one
here.
of these too?
Yes. But we'll talk about that in a second, because first and foremost, we need to get your valves working. Remember how you said they were super sticky? Alright. So, have you ever seen one of these?
I've seen the black ones and one of those.
Okay. So, there's a lot of different kinds, which is why I brought more than one. So, this is what's called a snake. And a snake is used to actually, like, fish the crap out of the tubings that you see here. So that's what it's going to be for, and I'll show you how to use it. These are actually just two different kinds of snakes, and I brought them to tell you something. So do you see how on this snake, it's just bare metal for most of it?
Mm-hmm.
Like that? If you can, you want to try and avoid that. Because this can actually scratch up the inside of your horn a little bit.
I've seen that.
Yeah. Stuff like that can happen a little bit. And that's not the best for your horn. It's not going to hurt it if you do it like once or twice. But over a long period of time, it will hurt. Which is why I would recommend getting something more like this. Now this one's really old, so it's kind of like breaking a little bit. But if you get a new one, it'll look exactly like this, like really pretty. But it actually, do you see how it's covered with this plastic? That prevents scratching. Alright, so have you seen these then? You said you've seen the black one. Have you seen either of these?
No.
Alright. So this is actually called a valve casing brush.
Is it? Oh, is it for right here?
Exactly. So that right there is to scrub out the inside. Now here's the thing though. Usually we would have water. Exactly. Now you're seeing it.
I always wondered how you get that clean. I'm like,
Yeah,
can't fill
you
a
just
towel
need-
in there.
You just need special brushes for it. So you'll do that on the inside. So if you get one of these brushes, you'll be able to do it in all of these holes. and then also in here. Because a lot of times, like your valves may not be the dirtiest, but your casings, because they don't get washed, they are. Now here's something that I do need to tell you, that usually your trumpet would be underwater for this part. Like this will still help, but it won't be the most effective it can be.
So underwater doesn't, the water.
When it's underwater, what happens is that what you scrub off will be taken away by the water and then flushed out. So right now, you're loosening all the stuff, but it's not necessarily getting out of your horn yet.
Oh, so after you do it, you do that.
Huh?
So after you scrub it out, you
rinse it out in water. Or actually, you can even scrub it underwater, because the only thing on the horn that you have to keep out of water is this, like from here and up. These can go in water, and the entire horn can. And as part of maintenance, I'm going to actually teach you how to take apart your horn all the way, and teach you how to care for it.
Just take off these 4 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. And then screws and stuff.
Take off screws too?
Huh? When you put it underwater.
Yeah, I took off this thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just take that off too?
Yes. So essentially, all of this would go into water, except for basically what you see over here. Make sense? Cool. Alright. So, because I don't want to get like too time consuming, while you're doing one valve, I'm going to work on your third valve as well. Okay?
Okay.
So, now that you have that all scrubbed out.
Do you ever clean the inside where the spring is or no?
If you are careful, you shouldn't have to. The inside of the spring stays clean, if you're doing things correctly.
So if you put valve oil in there?
No.
You never do?
The spring doesn't need valve oil ever. Cool. Alright, so now that that's all scrubbed, I'm actually going to let you try some of my valve oil, because I buy really nice valve oil because I'm a trumpet nerd. So this right here is called Hetman oil, and it's really, really nice. Because here's a difference. Your valve oil is right here. So that's actually a really good valve oil as well. But the difference between ours is mine's actually thinner than yours, which means it takes up less space in between here and the casing, which makes it slide easier. Now, of course, each trumpet has a different amount of space between the actual valve and the casing, but I found that this works best on most horns. But yours will work really nice as well. So when you're oiling your valves, where's the valve that you were working on?
Okay.
Okay, good. I'm gonna take a look at your trumpet. So, well, first of all, what do you usually do when you oil your valves? You said you've done it before.
Pull it out and just do this top, drop here and drop here. But if it's really sticky like it used to be, I just drop, 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 drop.
Okay. Alright, so here's what you need to know. When your valve is in the case, this right here actually doesn't touch the side. Only these do. So when you oil your valves, the only thing you actually need to worry about is this. So everything below this little plastic thing right here.
Yeah, I put it on here, but it only falls into the hole.
Well, that's why I'm here. When you're oiling your valves, what you actually want to do is put it everywhere. Now, you don't have to squeeze it all, because the oil will actually just come out of the horn in the amount you need as you drag it around. But you're going to put it all over the valve. Now, you see when I did that, it didn't actually go into the casing, into the holes at all, like you said?
If it goes into the hole, doesn't it affect the music?
No, it doesn't actually.
It doesn't? Because I thought it clogs it up.
It actually does. It doesn't, but you don't need to oil them, essentially. if that makes sense. So if you do that, maybe a couple of extra drops will fall off the bottom, but that just means that you did a good job. So I was working on
That
number
meant
3.
you put too much.
Huh?
That meant you put too much.
Actually, if it's dripping off like it just did, like just once, or maybe twice, that means you have the right amount. Because you want just a little hair, like a hair more than what will stay on, because that means you got everything. And then when you do that, you just put it back in there, screw it on, feel that.
Whoa. Used to go.
See?
Well, that's so cool.
Exactly. So let's try, here, you can borrow this. Do it on the first valve you were working on, and I'll scrub off your third.
It's like a maze.
Now, do you remember how many times you were supposed to scrub your valves, like per week?
3 days.
Huh?
Every 3 days.
No, the scrubbing, not the oil.
Every week.
Yeah. About once a week, you should do the scrubbing thing with paper. And then, to tell you the truth, putting the valve oil on like you just did. And also be careful, it will start falling like onto your pants and stuff. Which is why usually when I do it, I have like my legs like this. Because it allows anything that drips just to go onto the floor. Alright, so if you did that correctly, which I think you did.
My
when
teacher
you-
just told me to just like put a little bit on it and then just go, dunk, and you're done.
Alright, let's feel that. That's much nicer, isn't it? Now, I'm actually feeling that this one actually might still need just a hair more. Just because, do you hear the difference between the sound that it's making? This is what we're looking for. So you may need just a hair more actually, and let me find out.
Let me see the difference.
Here it's easier to see the difference if you just see it falling on. So do you see how it's almost like water when it fell? Yours will actually be just, it's not much and it's very hard to notice. Alright, I see what happened. So when you did it, you actually forgot to get up here, like all around. So if you get it all around up here,
Will this fall?
and then it'll start falling down,
We'll also get into the holes a little bit.
it'll get into the holes a little bit, but actually if you do that, it'll get all of this and all of this that's in a straight line, and all you have to worry about, again, is just going in between the holes. So like here, like there, and then at the very bottom. And then if you do that, plug it in.
I have to be careful if no one gets a big plastic and a small plastic.
Say what?
Like, you know how in it there's like one's bigger, one's smaller? Honestly, if you get the smaller one and the big one's like on top, so it's like this, will that be bad?
Wait. If what gets on top?
So like if the, you know how there's a bigger hole in there and a smaller hole? Honestly, if the smaller hole's in the bigger hole and there's bigger holes on top of the smaller hole. And it'll be like this, will that affect how you play?
Oh, if it gets stuck diagonally?
Hmm.
Okay, that's just the way your trumpet is.
We're supposed to have
It's
it like
just gonna
that?
make that sound. Huh? No, I was talking about the sound this is making. It's just because the way your trumpet
there's
is.
a bigger hole and a smaller hole in there, so.
So, yeah, this one's actually working really well now. So, if you feel that one and then feel that one. You can tell that this one's a little bit different, but I actually think that's just because your casing is a little bit off. And there's not much I can do without, like, an actual repair. Oh, and actually, the sound may be affected by the fact that this isn't on there.
It's really, like, you can actually see the green stuff for you.
Yeah, and again, if you do that underwater, it actually will come off a little bit easier.
Then how do you use a paper towel?
Alright, so for these bottom valve casings in the paper towel, you're actually going to want to use a slightly bigger piece than the
that
smaller one.
I have.
Because what you're doing is you're actually just shoving as much of it as you can into the thing.
It's like that big or half.
No, that actually is a good size. So do you see how I'm just like shoving all of it in there? Because if you do that, it'll get down to the corners, and then you'll just twist it like this, And when you do that, do you see it all comes out and how this is shaped like the valve?
What did they do it like a couple times?
Well, yeah, but for just the teaching purposes right now, this is all I really need to show you, and then when you go home you'll know how to do it, but you'll just repeat it a couple more times, if that makes sense. Because I'm just teaching you how to keep your trumpet clean, and then it's going to be up to you. See that?
That's gross.
Yeah. And that's what it's going to be like for a long time, actually, because you'll keep getting off older and older, but eventually you'll get to a point where it actually isn't that bad. Ooh, that one's nice. Alright, put those back down there.
Some of the stuff is like very stuck in the corners. Like, do you use
When it's
this
very stuck in the corners, yes, you can.
top middle part?
Yeah, the top middle part will be able to get in there. But again, for usually you'll want all of this underwater for that, because it helps to just clean out the grime and stuff.
You're gonna get homeless.
But one thing that I want to make sure that you understand is when you put it in water, it'll be completely submerged, and you need to take apart everything.